order. It is 7 o'clock, the April 2nd meeting of the Board of Trustees, and welcome everyone. And if we could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Kelly, will you let the record show that we are all here except for Mr. O'Neill, who is on vacation in Hilton Head. Lucky him. Okay, moving on to the approval of the consent agenda. Has everyone had a chance to look through that?
I move to approve the consent agenda as submitted.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to announcements and communications. I believe we have a young man from the Boy Scouts here.
Yep.
Come on up.
Hello, my name is Jonathan Petito out of Troop 103 in New Hudson, and I'm here to sort of try to get approval for my Eagle Scout project. I plan on doing my project at the Rose Cemetery. It's by the War Dog Memorial. It's on 11 Mile on the same side of the road, but it's about 3/4 of a mile closer to Martindale. And I came across the cemetery while I was searching for an Eagle Scout project to do. And in the cemetery, there's about 25 to 30 gravestones. And I mean, a lot of the brush is overgrown and there's a lot of litter and pollution around. And the cemetery, it doesn't have any sort of, I had to contact people in order to find out the name. There's no like sign or anything signifying where it is. And when I ask a lot of people around the community if they know of the graveyard I'm talking about, a lot of them don't, because it's kind of on the side and it seems like it's kind of been sort of pushed to the side. And so with my project, what I hope to achieve is to clean up a lot of the brush near the entrance to the graveyard, because there's a lot of thorn bushes and just some really nasty overgrown brush there. And so in order to make it more accessible to community and just a more beautiful place, I would hope to clean up a lot of the brush around the entrance and the gravestones. And not only to remove the brush, but also to replace it with small evergreen bushes so that they're easy to manage and they won't need a lot of management, and also just to keep the brush from growing all back. I also plan on cleaning up pollution in and around the cemetery because, like I said, there's a lot of like bags and just general litter around the cemetery. And I also plan on installing a metal sign at the entrance so people know that it is the Rose Cemetery and they know what to call it. A couple of questions I have is, what else or what changes to this plan do you think I should take into account?
Okay, well, Jonathan, what a great project. I can't believe that you're going to do that. I think that's a wonderful thing. And I know which cemetery you're talking about, and I think it's a very small one.
Yeah, it's only about 25 to 30 gravestones overall.
Wow. I think that's wonderful. And I don't know, it seems like you've got a lot of bases covered here with the sign and cleaning the brush and the trash. And I'd offer anyone have any suggestions?
Jonathan and I had talked at the counter for a while, and he wanted to help with cleaning the stones too, but we do have someone that does do professional cleaning of the stones, so he just asked if he could clean up, make the sign, which I would think would be fabulous. And then we'll talk about the evergreen bushes, just because I know those thorn bushes we take back every single year in the spring, but by the end of the fall, they're already overgrown. So maybe we can talk about just totally removing them or seeing what else we can do there. So that would work out great. So you and I might just need to talk again.
Yeah, there's only about 12 actual bushes, but I mean, they just cover around the entire fence. So I feel like it's a project that, I mean, there's a lot of work to be involved, but I mean, I feel like it's possible.
Something you can tackle.
It's something that we can definitely figure out.
Great.
And also, I kind of hope that this project, I feel like there's more than one project in the cemetery, so I'm hoping it turn into something that similar as a snowball effect to the War Dog Memorial, to where I had one of my, we had someone from my troop, Ryan Francis, do his project at the War Dog Memorial, and then that has kind of snowballed, and now it's this big, beautiful cemetery, and everyone knows where it is, instead of before no one really knew what it was. So I'm hoping that something similar, maybe not to as great of an extent, but still something similar could happen there, because I feel like there's multiple projects that could be taken up.
Yep.
And also just for respect for the dead as well.
Yes.
So
I think it's wonderful.
Another question I have is who would the beneficiary be for? Because I need the beneficiary to sign off. And since it can't be one specific like person because it's for the community, I was wondering if I had anyone that could like be the signing power. And
Michelle,
Yeah.
could I do that for him? Or would you want to?
Yeah, that would be fine, John Dolan, or you, whoever needs to, but, yeah.
I'd be
I
happy
would-
to do that.
I would think it would
I've worked
probably
with quite a few Eagle Scout projects in the past, so if,
That's right, you came up to the counter
I'd be
too when
happy
he
to do that.
came up. Yeah, I forgot about that, yep.
Oh, I think that'd be great.
all right.
Believe me, I have enough on my plate.
'Cause you were on the other one.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Great. Thank you so much, man. Oh, commendable. Wow, what great announcement that was.
I'm Bob Martin.
Hey, anyone else like to come up? And anybody on the board?
I have one. We had our SEMCOG elections this year last week, and our Oakland County Township delegate will remain as Milford Township Supervisor Don Green, and our alternate is still Orion Township Supervisor Chris Barnett. The main theme of the meeting was SEMCOG came out with their water resources plan for Southeast Michigan, and basically it's a nice plan to provide some framework for protecting the lakes and streams and whatnot that we all enjoy through our parks and areas. So it is available on their website, and so I encourage everybody to check that out too.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. Anyone else?
A little bit of trivia. On this day in 1902, the first full-time movie theater in the United States, called the Electric Theater, opened in Los Angeles, California. That's it.
1902, eh? Okay. Okay, moving on. Anyone else? I would like to draw to everyone's attention that the display case in the front is finally finished, and we're very proud of it. So that could be a good place for some of the cemetery things. Start displaying the Eagle Scout project. I like that. Okay, moving on. Seeing no more announcements. Call to the public. This is when we can come on up to the microphone. We'll talk about things that are non-agenda related. We do have a time limit on this of about 3 minutes. And a lot of the things that are said here, if we don't know anything about them, we take them into consideration, and you can leave your name with the record keeper, and we'll get back to you on that. Come on up.
Hello, everybody.
How you doing?
First time ever coming to a township meeting, so
Welcome.
thank you for your time. My name is Patrick Grollo. I live on Shady Creek Drive in Nine Township off of Pontiac Trail. I'm accompanied with a couple other residents on the road, and then also a resident who lives 400 feet through the woods to discuss some matters. We brought to the township's awareness through Mark Schneider, through the code enforcement agent, back in May 16th of last year. Dave Grove's house sold at the end of the property. It was acquired by a person who then took the property and has turned it into a rental property, which is fine with the neighborhood. No big deal, right? A rental property is fine. The problem comes with the way that the homeowner is now choosing to use the property. And hopefully out of the meeting, we're hoping to get an understanding of the issues that we're dealing with, and then the outcome that we're hoping to look for in the future that if the township could help us with. And the outcomes that we're looking to help get improvement on are the blight concerns, the collection of miscellaneous things which we feel are being collected and sold via Craigslist ads, which we have documentation kind of supporting those claims. And then no rental equipment. There is a code in the Lyon Township that states that rental properties can be used for rental properties, and if you're the homeowner, then you can use it as a single business, or you can use the house as a home business. But being a rental property, we're making the statement, or I'm making the statement, that the person owning the property doesn't live there and is using the front half of the property as a means to generate commerce for himself. I make that statement because he has an outside business other than his normal 40-hour-a-day job. And I have his business card that suggests that he's in the construction field and does things in the residential building and rental properties. So with those things said, we'd really like the township because I've made 12 personal phone calls. I visited the township 3 times. All the residents on the road have called, And quite frankly, the neighbor is choosing to put up a pole barn. Right now, he has two 40-foot shipping containers on the property, which, to my knowledge, he did not follow the normal process through the township to acquire the access to have those on the property. And they look right out, or when I'm sitting in my kitchen and at my dining table, those are staring back at me. One of the neighbors that are here, he's 400 yards through the woods, and he sees them through his property, through his windows. And there's a collection of things that he's starting to acquire more and more and more. And it's obvious that when you see Craigslist listings and these things are taking images on concrete and then they show up at our neighborhood, that it's more of a business. So I'd like to ask you guys, what do you think is a reasonable, we've all sold things on Craigslist. I've sold things on Craigslist. I'm sure other people, when you get it, you don't want to get, what do you think is a reasonable number for somebody to maybe sell it once or twice? Or
Like I say, again, Patrick, you kind of take us off guard on these things, and I really don't think that we can comment on something that we're not too
that's
informed
fine.
on. But you bringing it to the board's attention is a good thing.
Yeah. He has
And we can
36
follow that up.
listings.
Yeah, we'll have to have a meeting with our attorney.
That's
If
fine.
that's,
And
Oh, yeah.
the documentation I have, I'd be more than happy to leave with you.
You could leave anything with the record, with your name and numbers, how to get a hold
yeah,
of
would you do that?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, no problem at all. I'll leave the number that I use to search, to find his Craigslist listings. Right now, he has 2 of them on there that are things for rent. I have photos of his car coming in and out with those things attached and everything else. And the concern is that even if the shipping containers go away and that rule is enforced, when he builds the pole barn, the behavior is still going to be present, because he clearly feels that he doesn't have to follow rules and regulations like the general public. So that's one thing we'd like help.
Gotcha. And again, if you just let us mull this around a little bit before we comment on
Take your
something like
time.
that, it would be appreciative.
No
And
problem.
I can sit down with Mark Schneider, find out where it's at. We can go from there, okay?
I'd be more than happy with it. So,
Perfect. Thank you very much for coming up.
Yeah, you can just give me that now if you'd
sure.
like.
Yeah.
And your contact information's on there?
No, I can leave it with the recorder.
Okay.
But this is basically everything except for the
Okay.
blue sheet.
Alright.
And then you can see there's a growing list of
Okay.
things for sale and whatnot.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Patrick.
Patrick.
Thanks for coming up.
Here's my number right here.
Hello, everyone.
How you doing?
Good, thank you. My name's Tim Barrett. It's also my first meeting. I'm just here to kind of corroborate what Patrick just said. I'm
What
the
is your
neighbor.
address? Can we just get
Yeah,
that?
27911 Woodstream Drive.
Okay.
6076.
And I live roughly 400 feet through the woods from the property that Patrick was describing. So I just want to corroborate his story, and let you know that from my perspective, all I see is the containers. But when I drove over there and took a look at it, it is really quite unsightly. It kind of looks like he's starting a salvage yard or something. So, but for me, it's the containers and all the added traffic. We see a ton of traffic going through the driveway. But again, I just see the containers. So, just want to corroborate his story, and I hope that we can help to get it improved.
Okay, Tim. Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you.
I'm here on the same issue.
Okay.
I just question why you're saying that you're so taken by surprise. I also came in person to this office, and Mark, somebody or other, was off hunting. He did call me back, and I basically got patted on the head. Like, that's no big deal. So
most of
if
the
you
people
guys
here,
would
Miss-
all talk to each other, you wouldn't be taken by surprise.
Most of the board are one-time-a-month members, and that's why they are taken by surprise. Most of our board members are just here once a
Does
month.
Mark talk to you?
Mark talks to me about certain things, but we have to get to the bottom of things, Now we're going to. I mean, we're
Well-
going to sit down and talk about it.
Ma'am, we need your name and address.
Geraldine Swiderski, 60860 Shady Creek Drive, South Lyon. When I came in, a lady had a very large piece of paper, and she showed me where it was already an item to be discussed at these meetings. So you've heard about this before. I just want to
Okay.
mention that.
Well, thank you.
Don't tell me you haven't heard about it before.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Your turn. I just want to make sure. Abraham Ayub, 21962 North Line Trail. A couple different things I want to talk about. The first one real quick, I had the annual Easter egg hunt last weekend. Turned out very well. We had professionals from Lyon Township Fire, South Lyon Fire, Oakland County Sheriff, and South Lyon PD, which was very lucky because we did have an incident there that was handled very professionally and discreetly. And it was great. Kids had a great time. But again, I want to say, it's just a very big plus to the fire and the sheriff and PD and all parties. It was great. I want to start with about a year and a half ago, I started FOIAing a lot of stuff from the fire department, just because I was concerned. You guys know how I am with taxpayer dollars. One thing, I FOIA'd mileage on vehicles. The reason I did this, I felt the mileage didn't jive, and it doesn't. From what I've seen on mileage from vehicles, taxpayer vehicles, that are driven by the chief and assistant chief, in my opinion, those vehicles were driven for personal use. I also asked to see the township's policy on vehicles. We don't have one. I personally believe as a taxpayer, no vehicle should leave this township, ever. It's not like they're going to save a life driving a vehicle home. When I was on the fire department, we were not allowed to drive code outside the township. So it makes no sense for any township vehicle to ever leave this area. But the bigger thing is driving a vehicle for personal use. No one has the right to tell somebody, nor does somebody have a right to use that vehicle for personal use. And I think that needs to be looked into, and it needs to be looked into seriously. Second, and again, this is more of a policy between you and the fire department, and again, I don't know what the arrangement is. I don't really know the chief that well. He's a very capable person, but he seems more if he's a fire administrator. And that's fine, except we're not New York. We're not Chicago. We're not Detroit. When there's a fire, the chief shouldn't wait for a call from the assistant chief to see if he's needed to go to that fire, in my opinion. Maybe that's what you guys want him to do, and if it is, you're the board, you decide that. But the response that I got when I asked him how many fire calls he goes to, there's no record, and he said in the response that if he's needed, he will go, and the assistant chief will call him. Why don't you call Milford, South Lyon, Salem, call whoever you want, see if their chiefs go to fires without a phone call. I just think that's wrong, but you set that policy, not the residents. You need to decide on that. The last thing, and again, I'm trying to keep it real short because I got a lot of info, pay. When I was on the fire department, it was stupid then, and I think it's stupid now. There was a two-payer system. It was always meant to save the department money. There's plenty of money. Pay the firefighters what they're worth. In the wee hours of the morning, those guys are getting McDonald's wages. They can make the same amount of money working at McDonald's that they can at 3 in the morning. I don't feel my house is any safer now than it was when I was on the department and we had the all-call method. 2 weeks, I'm going to start an online petition to get these guys to pay what they're worth, because I want to make sure the residents understand that these guys should be making more than 12-something an hour when they're sleeping away from their kids and their wives and their families. It's just not right. It just shouldn't happen. We passed the millage. You can buy all the trucks, you can buy all the equipment you want, but it's the personnel that make the difference in the township. Pay the men what they're worth, and I guarantee the residents will back that up. They have supported that millage, and I see the firefighters, I just feel they're getting shortchanged. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Come on up.
Welcome. Greetings. Tim Davids, 25801 Belladonna, South Lyon. I came tonight to request full enforcement of the Hoskins landscaping business as well as the petty trucking business, which I believe there was a Michigan Supreme Court decision that ended their ability to operate at the end of Belladonna, if I'm not mistaken. Ongoing issues with the employees of Hoskins Landscaping speeding down Belladonna. And it's also been made clear to me that the sheriff's office has no enforcement authority on a private road. Liberally speaking, my daughter was playing at the end of the fall last year with one of our neighbors, one of the employees of Hoskins Landscaping, who clearly works there. We see his car come and leave every day. Literally, I'm liberally telling you, he had to be driving 55 miles an hour. I'm not making this up. Something, I understand, and I am not anti-business, John, but something has got to stop. Secondarily, having a gravel train go down a private road that receives very little maintenance from the homeowners. The private road agreement is non-existent, so we take care of it. When I say we, I mean specifically one neighbor who gets reimbursed if he's lucky. My dig is literally receives one empty liquor bottle every morning like clockwork for the last, count the years, every morning. And I pick them up and dispose of them myself. And I can tell you who does it. I'm not going to say their name openly. So I'm asking the board to consider clear enforcement as I stand in front of you, which the Supreme Court has stated needs to take place. I just can't, and believe me, I'm speaking on behalf of most of the residents on that private road as well. So,
Okay.
again, if you could do anything to make that happen, I would very much appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank
Tim.
you, Tim.
Okay.
My name is Dee Porter, 28200 Seville Drive, in Lyon Township, but South Lyon mailing address. First time I've come up also in front of any board. And regarding this call to public, may I speak about something that's on the agenda, or would we table that?
We'll give you time to speak when it comes up.
You will?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
No.
Maybe I'll hold off till then, okay?
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing no one, we're going to move on to the reports. And Tina is missing tonight. She had a bad experience at the dentist and she's at home. So that being said, we'll move on to the fire. Chief Van Smertek?
Good evening. Just wanted to give you an update on the staffing. As far as this past month, we started a 3-month scheduling to try and fill shifts way in advance so that we could better plan. And that's been working out pretty well. We also included the 24-hour shifts as well. And so we're looking now into June where we have gaps, and our coverage so far is much better. And of course, the summer months will be the test. So that's good news to report. Also wanted to report the promotion of 2 firefighters to sergeant, and these guys are going to be energetic. They're very high on training. They are James Tiernan and John Sove. And I look forward to their contributions for many years to come to this department. Regarding shifts, there is also a proposal that I've already shared with a few of you that I'll be coming forward next month before the board that addresses the shifting of the night shift and pay rate. So you'll be getting a memo on that in the next few days. And we'll go into that only if you want me to at this point, but otherwise, that's my report.
Were you going to promote these in a meeting?
Yeah, I still need to do a second. I met with one of them on Friday, and the other sergeant I'm meeting with tomorrow, and so it's working out their schedules, and hopefully they can make the next board meeting for that promotion.
Great.
And a pinning of the badge and all that. So thank you for your support on that as well.
Thanks very much. Moving on to the lieutenant. You have anything, Lieutenant?
Good evening, everybody. Just a little update on the South Lyon High School deputy that's working at the high school. Everything's been going fine. I haven't really heard a lot of feedback because there hasn't been that much, but the feedback that I've gotten has been real positive from parents and from the administration there. And the Easter egg hunt was a big success, a lot of kids, only one minor problem, but it was handled. And then if anybody has any questions regarding our incident towards the end of last week, I can answer them for you here if you want. It's been on the,
Does anyone here know what he's talking about?
we had
Oh, go ahead.
child abuse complaint
Oh.
or a situation at the end of last week out of the Kensington Place apartments. But we do have the responsible in custody, and he's already been arraigned. He's on a $500,000 bond and goes back to court on Friday. So it'll be moving along. Other than that, that's all I have.
Can you tell me, is the person in place at Southline High School likely going to be continuing perhaps into next year? Do you guys know that yet or not?
Don't know that yet.
Okay.
That's still a work in progress. I don't know where that's gonna go yet, so I know they're talking about it, but it's still, we don't know where it's gonna go.
Okay. I can tell you that my daughter's friends' parents have regularly told me that they're very appreciative of him being there, so it's it's well received.
Yeah, a lot of the parents, I've been getting the feedback from the parents, and it's going well so far, so we'll see. Thank you.
Thanks, Lieutenant. Moving on to the Planning Commission report. Patty?
Okay, in the month of March, we had 2 Planning Commission meetings. The first one was held on Monday, March 12th, and we had 4 public hearings. The first one was Cambridge of Lyon rezoning, and that was denied. We had the zoning ordinance revisions, and that was a public hearing considering some housekeeping issues, and those were suggested to come up to the Township Board. We had a child care center and group daycare home text amendments, and that also was approved and suggested to come to the Township Board, and that's to do with outdoor play areas in the existing and daycare homes. And then we had the mini warehouse text amendments. That also was an ordinance approved and suggested up to the Township Board, and that had to do with the discussion of the text amendment for gable roofings. We had no old business. The new business was a presentation by Taco Bell, which is slated to come into the Lion Center Drive. They had a couple issues with their site plan, so that was tabled, and that was brought back to our next board meeting, which was held on Monday, March 26th. We had no public hearings on that agenda. The first one was the Lion Grill expansion site plan. That was tabled. The applicant was not ready yet for presentation. The Taco Bell site plan was back, and actually it was approved, and it was very exciting, and we're very excited about it. We also had the winemaking and distiller regulations text amendments. Those were suggested approval to come to the Township Board, and that's putting some restrictions allowing some winemaking down in our residential areas or in our downtown development areas. And under new business, we had the concrete rehab and parking lot expansion at the fire station number 2. Mostly this is for Michelle's elections, and we had acquired some property in the back of that, and that was approved and brought up to the Township Board. And then the last one was the setback encroachment provisions, and that was for patios, terraces, and decks. And that actually is, it was clearing up of some text amendments, and that's also recommended for up here to the Township Board. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Patty. Moving on to the ZBA, Lisa, anything?
There was no meeting on March 19th?
No meeting, okay. Park Advisory Board.
Yes, we did meet, and we had a quorum, and we discussed the Leo storage unit is going to go up into the park. They're going to try to put a decal, is that what, wrapping a decal on it so that it's attractive up in the park, and it's going to hold some of the Leo things for all of the festivals. There was more information on the Peters Barn. We were really looking One person in particular was really, really looking to try to save it, and maybe if we could do something with that, with the barn and the house, but there is just no way that we can afford to keep that or take that on. So that was discussed. We also discussed a little about liaison attendance and that we hadn't been getting people to come, he including, I was guilty of that. And we are going to look at maybe changing the bylaws with Brian, and is going to take a look at that and see if we really need to have every board present, where that board is bigger than this board, and the planning commission. And then we also talked about, or Brian had also brought up that it was time for the park board to hopefully go ahead and start working on the master plan update of the park master plan. So we will be charged with that duty and probably be working on that for several months. So that's where we're at right now.
Very good.
Oh.
One other thing, I guess. We did have a member that is no longer considered active. So if you would, I guess, go through the process to appoint another.
So you need another member? Okay. 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 Bob, anything with the DPW?
Yeah, thank you, John. We've been working all winter trying to get ready for spring, and we're just about ready to roll. In the next 2 to 3 weeks, the ring road lights will be replaced. One at the expense of the township, and 2 with the insurance that will cover it. The Rice Street sidewalks are going to be taken care of. We're just about ready to install our first standby generator at the Spalding lift station, with 2 more following close behind. And we hope to have the park open here within the next 1 to 2 weeks. So with that said, getting a lot done. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Okay, Brian, anything on the planning? You give us that nice letter to read, and I hope everybody's read that.
I'm sure word for word, but
working on a lot of stuff there.
It's long. So we've been supporting the Planning Commission and the Parks Board, so that's taken up a good chunk of time. Here we've got a few upcoming site plans and special land uses that are going to be in front of the Planning Commission, so we've been working with applicants on a residential development. Slera and Matt Katz are coming forward soon. We've got some childcare site plans, a potential building and parking lot expansion for Performance Springs. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there sure is.
Which is a good thing.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions for Brian? Anyone have any questions for? He's got one here. Okay. Okay, that concludes our reports. So let's go ahead and move on to the approval of the agenda.
We need to remove.
I believe we do have to remove, what is it? C?
Mm-hmm.
That was the Aspen Trails PD has to be removed.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll delete C. Anyone else have anything to add?
You have to add your executive or
It's there.
closed session?
It's on there.
It's on there.
Okay.
Last
Okay,
page.
there's a motion to be in order for the approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted with the correction of item C under new business be removed at this time.
All right. We have a motion and a support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on. Unfinished business. Artesian of Pioneer Water discussion. And Ed is not with us tonight, but he did send a report for Bob. And we got some exciting news.
Yes. Believe it or not, we started the underground and preliminary land work at the corner of 9 Mile and Martindale, or I'm sorry, Griswold today. That is probably going to take 1 to 2 weeks to get the ground prepped and ready to go, with the underground work of pouring the base should begin by the middle to late April. And with that said, we're still waiting for DEQ response on the plants, meaning the Woodwind plant and the South Hill plant, but we're cautiously optimistic that we're very, very close to get this done. We're really anxious to get iron-free water out to our residents, and when that happens, everybody's going to be much happier. And with that said, John and I are going to be ecstatic, along with Patty and Michelle and the rest of the board. So we're making headway.
We are making headway. Any questions? Okay, then we're going to move on to the consideration of the adoption mandatory ordinance for the 2015 International Fire Code, and this is the second reading of this code. Does anyone have any questions? I think everything has stayed the same. Okay, so we can get a motion.
I'd move to adopt ordinance number 218 to adopt the 2015 International Fire Code.
I'll support that.
All right, we have a motion and a support. Any further discussion? Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to new business. This is the consideration of the introduction of an ordinance for the Oak Ridge Plan Development. This is the second reading, the final review, or this is the first reading?
First reading.
Sorry.
First reading.
First reading of the final review. So Brian, you want to kick that one off?
Sure. So Oak Ridge is a planned development on 10 Mile Road, directly between Woodwind and Walnut Creek Estates. It's a 73-unit single-family homes on just under 90 acres. The existing zoning is R10, but the planned development is going to allow for a density that would have been allowed under the R10. So we're really happy with the density there. This project has worked its way through the plan review stage. The Planning Commission held their public hearing back in September of 2017, and this body approved the preliminary plan on October 2nd of 2017. Just recently, in February, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the final plan. And so your action will complete the potential rezoning for this property. In terms of open items, the Planning Commission identified through our letter and through CES several items that need to be updated on the plan. They're generally housekeeping in nature. There's nothing truly substantive in terms of what we would expect to be changed. I'll run through those conditions, and if you have any questions on them, please feel free to ask. So there are a few wetland fill areas that need to be shown on some of the sheets. There was some discussion about the extension of a sidewalk within the plan that the Planning Commission requested be installed. They're missing some masonry wall details. The landscape plan needs to be amended for a few counts and changing some sizes to address some buffering concerns with the Walnut Creek Estates. And then finally, the plan development agreement had to be finalized, which was just submitted today. And so we'll give you a chance to review that agreement here in the coming weeks. So other than that, we don't have anything major. So at this point, we would again recommend approval of the final PD plan, unless you have any questions that would alter that.
The one thing that is a must is the 16 to 20 foot trees. That's a must, and it has to be on the PD, has to be. It's absolute.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was provided on the west side, wasn't provided on the east side, so, you know, it's certainly a positive, and as you say, it's a must in terms of providing buffering from those existing residences.
Okay, any questions for for Brian? Patrick, yeah. Brian? All right, Leslie, anything from you on this one? You all good?
I'm good.
All right, Carol, I think that you
I
wanted...
just want to comment on the PD agreement. There were a couple outstanding issues that we did resolve today, so you will have a clean copy ready for you at the next meeting. It follows our standard format, so there's not going to be any surprise when you see it. I'd recommend that you move forward even though you haven't had a chance to see it yet,
Okay.
because we can conduct that review prior to the final approval.
Okay. Do you want to come on up and we'll see if,
Evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Brad Botham on behalf of MI Homes. Some of you may know we were recently acquired by a national publicly traded home builder. As far as our operation goes, nothing's going to change. Howard's still running our business. Our management team is still in place. It's just sort of an opportunity for us to grow our business, to get into some different markets where we previously had not been operational in. And generally, we think it's a great thing for the community and for Southeast Michigan in general. So with that being said, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have tonight.
okay, I'd like to open this up for questions. If anyone has any questions, this is the final, but go ahead and ask them.
Yeah, I have a good chunk of questions. I guess when we went through the preliminary review process with this, I had stated there's probably about a half a dozen, maybe a little more items that I wanted to see changed. The items that you did change, the road layout, which is now between lots 50 and 51, has been addressed, so I appreciate that. Brian had mentioned that the landscape plan about the 16-foot tall trees on the east side was omitted from the landscape plan on this submittal. Is
Yeah,
that
we are
gonna be-
absolutely planning to do 16 to 20-foot trees on both the east and the west side of the property.
Okay. And Carol mentioned the PD agreement wasn't submitted for review yet, but that'll be in on the next.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. We've all reviewed and approved it, so.
Okay. Now, the items that hadn't been addressed or that I still have a lot of concern with is we're still sitting on 17 lots that would have deed restrictions on decks or pools being constructed based on the proximity to the wetlands. You know, the side yard setbacks are 10 feet, which is, you know, you're getting a break on that. And we're having issues already in McKenna actually. Their report on Saddle Creek subdivision, they had an issue with people encroaching within a 10-foot side yard setback into a drainage easement. So again, on these types of projects, you know, we're going to have 17 potential homeowners that would not be able to build a deck or a pool on their house. And when those people come in to us to have a PD amendment, first of all, they have to pay for it. And second of all, you know, we're put in a very tough position of saying no to, you know, future residents. So this is something that's bothered me for a long time, not only on this plan, but on other plans, because we don't, you know, we're going to look like, you know, the bad guys in the future when we're telling our, you know, future residents that, no, can't build a pool, can't build a deck. So none of those lots were fixed with this last submission. And it doesn't sound like these are going to be changed, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, at this point, and maybe Pat Keith, the engineer, can speak to that a little bit better. Is it a full 10-foot deck that we won't be able to construct?
Yeah, I think the discussion at the preliminary review was over some of the lots had much more of an impact, where most of them had very little impact, in that where most of them would allow for decks, but probably not necessarily pools. And I think they found that there isn't as many people looking for pools, but if they are, there's plenty of lots that have space available. But on those few lots, I think they're near the front, the first three on the left, I think, they probably wouldn't accommodate enough room for a pool. But I think that's a full disclosure when they're selling the lots. Those are located in easements. That has the restriction, so if they come along later and they want to put that in, you know, that it's right there in front of them that they can't do that because of the easement.
Yeah, and I guess that's my concern, is that these may have been able to be, either spread out a little bit, or you take the ones in the front, maybe push the development further back. I mean, you are offering over, I think it's almost 50% open space on this project, so, which is phenomenal. Usually, with a PD, you're only required 20%. So I question why, these aren't being spread out a little bit more so you can sell some more houses that may have, the ability to put in a full-size deck and pool. It's just something I keep repeating on these.
Yeah, and I think the site was pretty unique in that there's, that large wetland with the Blackwood drain and the restriction that the township has on cul-de-sac length. So in order for us, we're at the maximum cul-de-sac that crosses the drain. We're right at the maximum length. And for us to go further into that open space that you mentioned, we'd have to put another crossing across the drain in, which would impact natural resources and trees, wetlands, put us over the threshold with our wetland impacts that would require more, more consideration from NDEQ. So we're trying to minimize those things and still stay within the township's ordinance. And I guess that's what kind of led us to the PD that allowed us to do that, to have the smaller lots and push them all up front. And you're right, there are limited, not as much space on this type of lot than, say, on a typical R1 lot. But I think that's when, at the last meeting in the Planning Commission, I think Howard kind of articulated that that's kind of what the buyer's looking for, that in the market that they're working in right now. And this size lot and whether or not there's a pool, and probably there's enough room for a deck. I'm pretty confident of that. But you're right about the pools. I think some lots won't be able to accommodate that.
Yeah, I'm even questioning the decks on at least, probably half a dozen of them, where it is pretty much wrapped around almost to the rear of the building envelope on about half of those. But, I guess that's probably my major concern with this. The other concerns are, we have on this project is there's an access gravel drive being built to the wastewater treatment plant as part of this project. And we have, right now the trucks go through Woodwind to the south, and they're on concrete roads, and they beat up those concrete roads. And you as an engineer know, and most people would know anyway, that this gravel road is not going to fly. This is going to turn into a dust bowl when these trucks are coming on there. And then even beyond that, you also have grass pavers on there, which is fine, but they can't be plowed effectively in the wintertime. You get a blade will catch on those grass pavers and rip all that up. So again, I'm trying to, mitigate future issues that we're going to have when these people move in and they see sludge hauling trucks come back to the wastewater treatment plant between their houses and down a gravel access drive kicking up dust. And these look to be nice homes, and I'm sure these people will be unaware that this is going to be happening. So my solution on that one would be to make that a concrete access drive, make sure it can fit within the maneuverability of the trucks that are going to be using it.
And I think that was one of the items we did discuss, and we did make some changes to the plan where we put the grass pavers closer to the homes and the gravel area. And it's got to, from an engineering standpoint, it's got to be thick enough and strong enough and, built to the proper spec in order to carry the sludge hauling trucks. But as far as the dust goes, most of that's located in the woods and in the trees, and so that where we didn't think it was necessary to, from a dust standpoint, it wouldn't be impacting the residents, but where we were next to the homes is where we went with the grass pavers, I think based on either the Planning Commission or Board's comments.
Now, I have to disagree with you on that one, because I know these things will kick up dust, and then, if I'm lucky enough to still be on this board, I'm going to be hearing about it in the years to come. Another item is still the access path to the open space. Right now, it's set as an aggregate, 5-foot wide aggregate walkway going back into the area, and it's not connected to their internal sidewalk system right now. Somebody would have to go over the grass pavers and access that. We've typically wanted a hard surface pathway, whether it's asphalt or concrete, to go back into the open spaces. The aggregate path, if done right, will last a few years, but eventually those weeds will, start to break through, and then we'll lose that path. So that's another item I'd like to see, if that could be a, hard surface, concrete or asphalt surface coming through there.
Yeah, and I guess we were just going along with what was previously approved. And in that case, the HOA has got to maintain it, whether it's asphalt, concrete, or gravel. And, grass will grow, will it last longer? Sure, you could make the case, but I think in the overall design through the process, it had always been, I think it was wood chip at one time, and it beats it
Right,
up to
that's pretty- yeah.
gravel. So I think that's kind of where we stand. We wanted to leave it gravel, give it that more natural look than a concrete paved into the wood, or pavement into the woods.
Now, we've done a few with the asphalt pathways that are usually a little better. And I guess the ultimate question on this is that, with the PDs, the applicant's is required to provide a community benefit. And from what I can tell, the benefits that you're providing, yes, access to the wastewater treatment plant, but it's also going to be causing a future problem with the dust if it's not a concrete access drive. I don't, you have more than the 20% open space, but a lot of that is helping you out by, compressing everything into the front end and avoiding a second wetland crossing. So when I have to answer to people and they say, there's another new subdivision, it's a planned development, what community benefits did they provide? I'm at a loss. I can say we got a gravel access drive to the wastewater treatment plant that's, going to be dusty.
Well, there was a few others, specifically 10 Mile Road, widening it to 3 lanes.
It is, but that's also a requirement by the road commission.
Actually, they suggested it. They would like to see it, but with 2 entrances, you're required to put in passing lanes, but that's it. They would like to.
Now, their
then we connected it.
correspondence was pretty clear that it was going to be, required that they wanted that 3 lanes between the 2 entrances.
Like I said, our contact with them was, we'd really like to see it, I guess is the way that they put it, but we can't make you do it. And I think that was, again, a preliminary review. When this went before the Planning Commission and the board, those community benefits were outlined and accepted, especially that one, I think was a big one. And this one to the treatment plant, to take the sludge trucks off the existing private roads that weren't really built to handle it and put them onto a public road that are built to handle it, and a gravel road that is intended to be built to handle it, was also a community benefit. And there was also, I can't remember all of them, but I know there was a potential for a water tower easement, which I guess turns out they don't need. But, the developer was willing to add these things, and there was other community benefits. But I mean, the trade-off, the back and forth, I guess, it was judged at the time to be sufficient to approve the PD, so we didn't plan to go back and revisit, the different community benefits, because we thought we were providing some, and that there was a return from the township through the PD approval.
Right, and I guess I brought all these up in the past, and they voted no on this in the past as well. So it's going to be the same tonight, because, we don't even need the water tower property either. So, do we get anything back for that?
Well, it was something that was asked at the last minute, and then I think Howard stood up and said, if he asked us to look into it, and we found room for it, and he said, if you need it, we'll provide it. And it turned out, I think there was another opportunity at another location, and that worked out, but it was, if you need it, it's there. But
All right, those are my comments.
Okay.
John, I have some comments that are similar to Chris's. I would like to point out that there were several emails, 5 of them, and I think a 6th, which had been from the second email from the same individual, but they were in September 20th, 21st, 25th of 2017. And I don't know if those residents are here tonight. I know that they have not submitted any additional emails for tonight, but Krista Meister, Brian Laskoff, Rich and Jennifer Perrone, Lucy Koviak, and Robert and Beverly Byer. And I think all of these residents consistently have mirrored concerns that Chris Enlow and I have made, Sean O'Neill at previous meetings, although I know he's not here tonight. But this is not new, that we have, there have been several people who have been bringing up concerns about community benefit, and I feel like for you to say tonight, well, this was all agreed upon on previous steps along the way. Yes, but it's not as if it has been unanimous up until now, like, oh my gosh, what has happened? We've been bringing up these items consistently. Residents have been asking us consistently to ask for more. And if your community benefit is some road widening, I mean, other developers have come in here and at the last, at the final stage, we've been able to get true, genuine community benefit for our residents. And as this board, we are charged at looking out for our future residents with your development in place. And what do we have to show in 10 or 15 years to say to our residents, this development, this planned development system works because it's a give and take between the township and the developer. And I don't feel like there's really a lot of community benefit coming to our community. It's not a personal item. It's not what I'm asking for. I don't live here. It's not what Chris Enlow is asking for. He doesn't live there. We're looking out for the residents who took the time, last year to write an email, who took the time to perhaps come to tonight's meeting, who took the time to go to planning commission meetings. And I had a resident speak with me tonight. He's in Florida and he can't make it tonight, but he has been consistently concerned about your development. I'm not quite sure why there is no connection to Valleywood Drive. Normally I'm not at all a fan of connections, but given certain circumstances, I believe that it would have been a logical, I know it's too late, but I do want at least this to be, on the record that I have this concern. It seems like a logical connection since there's an elementary school right next to your development. And the concrete approach to Rosemont Drive is in absolutely deplorable condition. So what you've essentially done by having your development not even connect to the west, all that traffic is going to be dumping out onto 10 Mile, only to quickly loop right back in to Rosemont Drive to go to Hardy Elementary. So every resident within this development, in order for those kids to walk to Hardy Elementary, they have to walk down to 10 Mile, cut to the west, and then walk into the subdivision. And most parents are not going to have their children do that. So what are they going to do? They're going to throw their kids into the car, and they're going to drive their kids to Hardy. And so although I think that it would have been better to have an actual connection to Valleywood Drive, so that your development could actually allow those residents to drive their children to elementary school without going out onto 10 Mile and increasing the traffic, that is not going to happen, and I'm realistic about that. I think it was, we lost out on a really good opportunity for that to have happened. But you don't even have any way for these kids to walk to Hardy Elementary. I mean, if you took out maybe a lot, somehow they could, maybe you could have a connection some way for them to, like a walking path, so that they could actually walk to their local elementary school. And as a parent with children, I know that busing is a problem, but I doubt that this would be a bused elementary, especially since Hardy is right next door. I still have problems with the parallel plan. That ship has sailed, but I do believe that there were some inadequacies in that parallel plan. I agree with Chris regarding the gravel road. It is going to create dust. I live on a gravel road. It creates dust. There are like 12 houses on my road. And throughout August, there's just a haze of dust. We have an elementary school that's right next to your development. Well, not right next to, but, it's in the development next to you. We have students in that elementary school who have special needs, and you're saying like, don't worry about the dust. Well, we'll worry about the dust in maybe 10 years when residents are continuing to complain about a gravel road. I don't feel that you have really brought much of a community benefit at all. I have the same worries regarding setbacks and the 17 restricted sites. We will be the ones to hear people asking for a deck. You're not going to hear them asking for a deck. It's going to be us trying to tell them, sorry, you can't have a deck. And, in April of 2018, we had that concern and we were told not to worry about it. And I think that the overall layout of this is, could have improved by taking a couple of lots out. But the road from lots 27 and 28 to lot 14 is a pretty long straightaway that lacks that curvilinear design, as well as lots, the segment from lots 57 to 63. Again, it does really lack that curvilinear appearance to it, like you have along lots 1 through 10 and 55 through 47. I think that's a much more attractive road network. And that is all I have as my comments tonight.
Okay. Well, I will say one thing. I know that you guys think that you hear a lot of complaints about these developments, but if you sat in my office and listened to the people in Woodland complain about them sledge haulers that I get constantly, them sledge haulers break that road up, and the township is actually probably going to have to help them fix that road. And how many times do the sledge haulers haul, Leslie? 6 times a year?
Spring and fall, it's when they apply the sludge to farm fields.
And then what is that, 6 trucks maybe each time?
Sure.
What's that?
Probably 6 to 8 trips a day for 2 weeks.
Okay, 6 to 8 trips a day for 2 weeks. And I'll tell you, the benefit that that road is going to give to this township for the people of Woodwind is way more than you guys realize. And I think that's a huge public benefit, and that's my opinion. And I do think that the 3rd lane on 10 Mile is a huge benefit, absolutely huge. I sit here a lot and I listen to people say, let's not cut the trees down, let's not ruin the wetlands, and then when somebody comes in with a development that at least fits the density, you offer benefits to the community in which you don't have to because you don't have any density. And then we keep trying to get more and more and more. I mean, you are saving a lot of trees, a lot of trees. And, I sit and I listen to Lisa say about connections. She's always against connections. So that's kind of my problem because, we can't have it all the way, all the time.
Well, to clarify, John, I am not one for connections. I mean, I'm consistent.
Exactly.
But
And
my
so they
point
do
is,
that.
right, but my point is, there's not even a walkway for these families to walk their children to Hardy Elementary. So I'm not asking for there to be, and I want to clarify then, if that was the misunderstanding that I provided. I don't want you to connect to Woodwind, because I don't like connections. But I'm asking for some way for children and their families to actually be able to walk to their local elementary school. And although there is no actual road network connection, for there to be some kind of walking path connection that will allow those families to do that, instead of having to walk to 10 Mile, down 10 Mile, and then back into the subdivision. But I know that others disagree with me on my dislike for those.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying we finally get a development that fits the density requirements by 1 or 2 houses either way. It's a pretty decent looking development, in my opinion. Yeah, there could be a few things that could change to make it a little bit nicer, but there are community benefits that they don't even need to give us. I think they're doing a pretty good job here, and that's just my opinion. And
My turn?
go ahead.
Well, we had a very, very long discussion about that utility road. And I know Chris and Lisa, you might think differently, but we didn't want a paved road, actually. And the reason why is we don't want people going down that road. We don't want to make that road attractive. It's going to our plant. And we opted for, first it was, I think, wood chips. We said, no, that's not acceptable. We agreed with gravel, and then we asked for something much more attractive by the houses. But once you get past those couple houses, it's woods. It's all woodland there. And we don't want people going down that road other than the haulers. And I'm very happy with it, and the Planning Commission was very happy with that choice. And again, we don't want people going down that road. You don't want to make it attractive. So that's one thing. I have spoken to the Planning Commission about the length of our cul-de-sacs. And that had, not just in this development, but it has, the length of our cul-de-sacs is 660 feet. And it causes a lot of hardship for the township and the developers because they're so limited. And this would have been a prime example if we could have had the cul-de-sac longer, the length, we could have reduced some of the houses that abut Woodwind. And that would have made it a much more attractive and appealing development. But it's our rules that stop that, not yours. I have to agree with John. There's no density bonus in this development at all. They came with totally no density. They're taking over 90 acres and they're pulling it all up front. That means if we didn't, that would cover that entire 90 acres with housing, cement, in which we want to preserve the open space. There's mountains of wildlife in there, and I think that's a huge, huge benefit. And I'm surprised that you guys, Lisa and Chris, because you're always asking for extra parkland or extra open space and extra everything. Well, this development provided it. And normally, the trading is if you grant extra density, there is public benefits. And there is no extra density here. So I understand why this was the way it was. I'm very happy with it. And my other thing is, I'm reminding you again that both on the Woodwind side and the east side, that those trees are hand-picked by the residents to where they want them. Howard promised that, and both the Planning Commission and the board, and I am just making sure again that there better not be one tree planted there without them picking where they want them to go, and that's Howard promised that.
Yeah, I've actually been in email correspondence with some of the homeowners as well.
And the height is very important, 16 to 20 foot, them are big trees.
So that's going to provide some nice screening, and you know, the Woodwind is also a planned development, and there wouldn't be condos there if we didn't allow things like that. So I'm very happy with the development. I think you guys did a good job.
Anyone else?
I'm just thinking I missed the preliminary review, but I didn't because we had it all over tonight.
Are you ready for a motion?
Yeah, I'd like a motion. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to approve at first reading AP-17-10 Oak Ridge Plan Development Final Plan Development Review as submitted.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right, let's call this one by roll, please, Kelly.
John Dolan?
Yes.
Christopher Enlow?
No.
John Hicks?
Yes.
Patricia Carcone?
Yes.
Michelle Cash?
Yes.
Lisa Slates?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the consideration, introduction of ordinance for campgrounds, to amend the campgrounds text amendment. Brian, let's start there.
The campground amendments originated upon the finding of need for addressing campgrounds as a permitted use in the R1 district. And I know this body has seen a previous version of the amendments. The Planning Commission has been hard at work on updating this to address the needs of residents in the R1 district, making sure that there is substantial buffering for this type of use. We've refined the types of occupants of campground uses. So I think from the Planning Commission's perspective, they've addressed a lot of the concerns in terms of permitting a use. You know, part of this is that the State of Michigan Zoning Enabling Act requires us to address uses that are demonstrated needs in the community, and so this will help the township do that. In terms of, I'll just run through a few changes since the last time you saw it. Some of the definitions have been updated. We've now got better definitions for campground, truck campers, folding tent trailers. I mentioned that this will be a special land use, so wherever a campground is applied for in the future, a special land use process will have to be followed, and that includes a public hearing and review by the Planning Commission as well as this body. We've required on-site restroom and shower facilities where public water or where community water and septic are not provided per each site. There's a fence requirement now for the surrounding, for the benefit of the surrounding property owners, with the opportunity to approve a landscape berm in instances where that's appropriate. We've addressed internal road networks by requiring either paved or gravel surfaces of 20 feet in width, potentially wider, which would allow for some internal road parking. And then we have defined several setbacks. So 100 feet is generally the setback, but also maintenance vehicles would need to be required. They would be required to be set back 200 feet. So again, we're trying, all of these are standards intended to protect the residential character around any potential campsite moving forward. So this was recommended in full by the Planning Commission for your review and approval. So any questions I can take?
Okay, so everyone had a chance to read through these amendments, or do you have any questions?
I have a question. We have an existing park or campground, and I was just wondering, if you want to use the term grandfathered in, they're already here. So if they want to do additional work, then that is when they have to upgrade to this standard.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Significant improvements, change in lot number, any additional structures, any of that kind of expansion or change in use would end up going through this process moving forward.
Okay, anyone else? Any questions?
No, I had one comment on it. I guess it's, I prefer the paved roads, but also allow a one-way width on some of those at 12 feet. But that was just my only comment on starting with the ordinance revisions.
I guess the only thing that I have to say, I know in a lot of campgrounds that I've been in, very few have had paved roads, but, I mean,
Don't they at least have them coming, though, into the entrance?
but I'm talking throughout the campground.
Oh, they don't have it just like in the main road? Okay.
Well, some of them do, you know.
Okay.
What do you think about that? Would you, I mean, do you want to put it as, instead of gravel roads, have just paved roads? I mean, does that sound,
Been in a lot of campgrounds over the years and never seen one with paved roads. Never.
When it was
I think that's all I've
discussed-
ever seen in campgrounds is paved roads. Let's go
Really?
a different type of camping, like the state parks and everything. You're usually at least a one-way paved road
What's that?
going throughout. Yeah.
state park might be a little more
We
money.
had a long discussion with this at the Planning Commission, and they really wanted to see the paved roads.
Well,
And I'm okay if it's one way, as long as there's, so it looks,
They,
I don't know.
my recollection when it was at Planning Commission, we talked about this, because when you add pavement, then it adds stormwater requirements too. So they recommended language either or, and then it's on a plan-by-plan basis if something is proposed, that the Planning Commission would be able to evaluate it at that time. Because you would also expect now some ADA spaces for camping
Right.
as well. So it's a little bit different, but camping throughout the state of Michigan, you can see very rustic
Varies.
or what people call glamping, where everything's paved and there's electrical and water and sewer. So it just really, I think, depends on the experience that you want. So
yeah. Okay, any other questions? Well, it's up to you guys.
This is first reading, right?
First reading.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve AP-17-38, first reading of proposed zoning ordinance text amendments for campground regulations as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Anyone? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to the consideration, the introduction of an ordinance to amend zoning ordinance revisions, text amendment. Brian?
That's one removed.
That's the one we
11
removed,
Park.
C.
Park.
That was taken off, item
Oh.
C. So
No,
we're
no,
at
no. No, this is in here.
Park D.
11
Yeah,
Mile
11
Park.
Mile Park. Got it. I went by that one. Okay. So this is the conceptual layout for the 11 Mile Park and the consideration. And this is brought to your attention so that you can get some look at what everyone's been putting together. And we are going to have some public hearings probably after this. And it's all going to, this is the start, guys, so tear it apart.
And it's just the red button at the top. Yep. Maybe I'll come back. It's not showing up.
That's it? I think we're good.
We turned that
We
side
turned
off.
them off.
There it is.
I'm going to start with the original concept plan, just to get introduction to the park. This is the township's property at the northeast corner of 11 Mile and Milford Road. And this concept plan was prepared by McKenna several years ago in really seeking grant funds to develop the park. And let's see if I can, I don't know if I can pull this up anymore, but it was developed really, the goal was to develop it in phases as the township acquired funding to build out the entire park. And the first phase at the time was proposed to be a multi-use field, phase one, the east-west field, as well as the parking lot and detention basin that's near the corner. There's also phase two included a playscape area. Phase three had 3 more multi-purpose fields, and phase four was a baseball diamond at the north end of the park. Now I'm going to show you what we've developed since then. I'm just trying to get
Hit your X on the bookmarks. And
Hit the other arrow on the side too.
All right, we're getting there. Okay. So it's a little bit hard to see, but this is Milford Road, in this area, and then this is 11 Mile. Let me just grab my little pointer thing. So the main changes are that the baseball field at the north end has expanded. It's a larger field to accommodate adult leagues and recreation. The township, as you know, just participated in building 2 baseball fields up here at the Township Park. And the east-west multi-field, we eliminated through committee discussions with the Friends of the 11 Mile Park. And in its place, it was a proposed amphitheater. Now, the phase lines aren't shown on this plan because really what the initial phase would be the parking lot and the play structure. The township board is aware that there was an anonymous grant donated to help fund the play structure, and the construction will need to be completed by the end of 2019. So that is our goal. So we've been having several meetings with the Friends of 11 Mile Park to discuss the layout, and we've made these changes, but wanted to bring to the township board for discussion as well as direction before we kick off the detailed engineering design, because once that's set, budgets will be set from that. We also did add a perimeter fence here. There are some active gas and oil wells, and we thought that would be good to have a boundary. We also put up the pavilion closer to the parking lot where there would be a bathroom located, which would also be in close distance to a proposed amphitheater. So I'm really here tonight just to discuss the layout, see what you like, what you don't like, and we'll take that back to the Friends of the 11 Mile Park and move the project along. Brian, did I miss anything?
No, I think the only thing that I would add is, in removing that east-west field and proposing the amphitheater, there's a good chunk of property that's still undeveloped, and so it's an opportunity for either this board to dictate what may go there or leave it open-ended and see what needs develop as time goes on, or through feedback, as John mentioned, from public hearings that might inform us as to something else that would go there.
There's also, this boundary here is also the boundary of a conservation easement. So it's hard to tell on this screen, but we would not be able to get into this area to do any additional development of the park. So the open space that Brian's talking about is in this area as well as up here.
How large do you think that area is?
It's 40 acres. Probably.
No, I'm talking about the open space that you were just talking about there.
Probably pretty close to one of the football fields.
Hmm.
I mean, not exactly.
So it's a good space.
Yeah, it's a large area.
Okay, I'd like to open this up for questions. This is conceptual, so we'd like to have opinions, so please let us know what you think. There's a lot of work put into it at this point.
I'm wondering if is that a good mix? Is that what we need? I mean, based on the different clubs, we need 3 utility fields and 1 baseball field.
That's exactly correct. We've met with, and John Bell has done, Leslie has, and some, the Friends of the 11 Mile Park have met with the what is it, soccer, lacrosse.
Baseball, junior league.
But what's the other one that uses the long utility football? And they feel that 3 fields are sufficient. What they would really like is another adult baseball field. And we are working on some other things to try to figure that out. But we thought adding the amphitheater, which might be a really nice thing to have some concerts there, and maybe leaving that extra area open for future development when maybe something we don't know comes along, or a senior fitness center or something. But if you develop the whole thing, then we're like done. And we thought, well, that might be a good idea. And Bob's given us a lot of feedback also. And we even talked about the stormwater detention area, possibly having that flooded and making that an ice skating rink, which again would be close to the pavilion, close to the parking lot. So we think we have a lot of good ideas, but there's always room for more and improvement, or if you think something else, but we're pretty happy with that. And that's why we took that extra utility field out. So it's more with the park, other users, not just not the sporting fields. That it gives us some other activities that might be more attractive to a senior like myself. I hate to say I'm a senior, but I am. Something like that adds more well-rounded to our park. So that's how we came up with that. But
we also did discuss a possible entrance off of Milford Road, but it would require widening of Milford Road and would add about $150,000 to the approach. So we went back and thought the 11-mile approach looked very good.
Are we looking at possibly, well, the 11-mile entrance right now is going to be over we got a couple hundred feet of gravel.
Mm-hmm.
Do we need to
the gravel steps,
pave that?
this is where it's paved, and
Yeah.
this is gravel, and the parking area may end up being proposed as gravel as well.
To start?
Really the critical thing is to lock down the location of the play structure so that that can be built in at least a portion of the parking lot initially, because that does have to be constructed in the near future. Some other items we discussed, we had the amphitheater at one point with it kind of the direction the music would go this way, and we changed that so that any music would be going towards the woods and that it would be located close to the bathroom area and parking. So that's some of the background on how we moved things around.
Well, you've kind of hit on a couple of my points. Patty actually did too. First was and John on the needs assessment, because going through the master plan and just floating around aerial photos trying to figure out the needs without talking to anybody, just pure count. And we have, throughout the township and immediate adjacent communities like the ITC Park and the city of South Lyon, there's 26 baseball fields and 10 softball fields and 12 multi-purpose fields. So if the need is there, then I guess I understand that, but it just seemed like those numbers were rather high. But if you've talked to the people, then I can respect that and fine with me.
Chris,
we have.
if
They
I
would
might-
like the other, like I said, they would really like the other adult baseball field.
Okay.
So John's diligently working on some other things to see if we could ever accomplish that, so.
Okay. The amphitheater too, I actually was, and I have it here, see, I actually put it in the corner. And the reasoning, my reasoning on that was trying, if you're out there watching whatever's performance is at the amphitheater, I was concerned about headlights from the cars, people pulling in and out that could shine back at you. So that was, maybe we can orient it so the music goes north, I don't know. Because you're right, if it goes off to the, northwest, there's homes and stuff there too, and if they don't like the performance, that they might not like that.
That amphitheater can be used for numerous things also. Presentations in the warm months, unrelated to music too, so.
No, I think it's a fantastic addition
Yeah.
to it, in all honesty, yeah. And then I think, it's, other considerations, you mentioned the Milford Road entrance, so, I guess it's up to us what we want to do on it. But if it's cheaper and we want to get this thing started, I think 11 miles is probably the way to go. A couple people asked about walking paths. Is there going to be any site lighting on site? Maybe not right away, but are we going to have these fields lit or the parking lot lit at some point, or is this closed at dusk to start, or I guess
We didn't even discuss lighting, but my hunch is that would be on a much later
phase 5
Six.
or 6?
So I would guess that it would not be lighted unless the parking lot lighting, if you were gonna have evening events there, you would have to consider that at some point.
Mhm.
But initially, we weren't even discussing lighting.
Okay.
What about prep? Maybe prep it for lighting. I mean, is that, that's a good idea.
Before you pave it, at least. But if it's
Definitely
gravel,
before it's
then,
paved,
yeah,
right.
if it's,
But the configuration of the amphitheater is important, because if they're seated where you see them, where they're kind of on the hill and the stage is lower, where we put this will be important, because we plan to do the detailed engineering and grading plan for the entire site. So if there is a preference for it to be relocated, it can be done, but we would need to know that really at the concept phase.
Okay.
So we can build that in. And the pavilion here will have a bathroom proposed, which is somewhat central to the park. It's near the field, as well as the amphitheater and the play structure. So we thought that was a good location for the pavilion, or if somebody's having a family event there, you don't have to drag your coolers from here all the way over to here. So those are just some of the reasons where we were playing around with the.
yeah.
Maybe
I
you
mean,
could speak to the type of bathroom we were talking about too. The
Well-
vault.
We were talking,
Yeah.
I recommended a septic, and then it was also suggested possibly a vault type of bathroom.
What is that?
it's not pleasant.
An outhouse.
Oh, no. No, it isn't.
Basically, okay.
Every vault toilet I've had to go to in a campground has
it's-
been just an outhouse with a lid.
It's not. It's just a nice building, but it's built on an underground tank
Oh.
that can be pumped out, and you get away from running a lot of underground piping to it. We could still run water to it, though. Okay.
Thanks.
And many places
fancy
have
outhouse.
it, such as Kensington has that kind of product. Many parks, city parks have that.
I have a question about the amphitheater, and whatever works out to be, or a comment, I should say, not a question. Whatever works out for the best is fine with me. I'm not really partial one way or the other, but when we did do the movies in the park, I do recall having a real issue with the headlights. So if there is a nighttime event, I'm not necessarily saying it would be a movie that would be held there, but if there's a way to kind of address the headlights of the parking lot, I do recall that having been a bit of a problem. And then, is there a plan to have, to backtrack, I like that the pavilion and the amphitheater are close to the parking lot. And I also like the play structure there. Is there a plan to go with additional play structures there? Because I've had several residents comment to me that they want more than just one small structure.
The structure is for all ages now, both age groups.
Right, but I mean, is it going to be, it seems like a pretty small amount on the plan for right now, but is there a plan to have additional structures added to it? Or is this?
I think this is a pretty large.
I'm going to defer to Brian on the play structures.
So the equipment that can be paid for through the anonymous donor is going to be pretty substantive to begin with.
Yeah.
But
Oh, okay.
in our
Very.
yeah, I mean, it's going to be large and separated into a tot area and a big kids area, if you will.
Don't kids use swings anymore?
But all maybe those will get thrown on there. But in talking with Lance Shipman from Pentura, which is one of the largest playscape and outdoor furniture suppliers in the area, all of the systems these days are designed to be expandable or compatible with future expansions if we decide to go that route or if funding becomes available. So,
Okay. And then, is there, I noticed in that ITC park that there's like some play spots that are closer to some of the ball fields. Is there an opportunity to have near the ball field, especially if it's adults who are, who would be playing, to have some of those, like, I don't know if they're called play spots or just the smaller structures? Do you know what I'm talking about with ITC?
I do. We haven't talked about them specifically. We have identified several grant opportunities that encourage that kind of thing, kind of unique playscapes that think outside the box, which would be a good opportunity for what you're talking about. So we can certainly keep that on the list.
And I do have a friend of mine asked, when he saw this plan, he asked if there was any consideration, not necessarily now, but in the future, of having a small skateboarding spot, not a big skate park at all, but just especially with so many people you have a paved path that leads it right to that park. If that could be thrown into some consideration. And I have already encouraged my friend to start attending the Friends of 11 Mile Park, but I did tell him I would mention that as one of the resident requests.
How much room do they take up, Lisa, do you know?
I don't know. I mean, they have some that are really small. They're just they're just a spot. So if you're trying to work on a trick, it's just where you're not going to want to, we're not talking about the big bowls or anything like that, but just to be able to work on some
I think that's
some
a great
individual
idea.
tricks.
Could that fit up in that? Yeah, like right up in there?
It's just that, like, when I looked at this beautiful paved path that's leading like a mile, essentially we're going to have that completed mile path of people being able to get to there. It seems like a pretty logical spot, and many businesses do not want skateboarding at their business or on their parking lot, and there's really not a whole lot of places for people to go.
Well, I think there'd probably be room here, or there would be room to put something like that in addition to, by leaving some of these areas open for the future development of the phases for opportunities like that. But it is good for us to talk about, to take back to the Friends of the 11 Mile Park and say, here are some ideas that have been generated. What would you want to do? Because we do want to use this plan to seek grant funding opportunities. We decided to hold off this year in applying and take some time and really develop the plan where it meets the community's needs and then go after the funding source. Even getting the pathway across Milford Road is very complicated. This will not be in phase one and maybe not even phase two. It's expensive. There's utilities all over the place. So some of the things aren't as simple as the others. So
I think that Patty brought up a good comment about trying to meet every segment of our population. I mean, my kids don't play baseball or play football or any of the sports that would be represented here. And by the time this is done, my daughter will be in college. I don't think she's swinging on the swing set, but
I thought she'd be playing in the amphitheater.
she could be.
That's exactly right.
She played at Easter Sunday.
I know that. That's what I'm saying. There you go.
So I think that, having the amphitheater, being able to reach out to maybe some of the schools and have, like the bands perform, or, like the concerts in the park kind of series, that might be something that's interesting. But being able to pull in all segments of our population, not every family has kids who play these sports, but just having some of these pockets. And then, also looking at the long-range goals of our recreation, where it says that we should, I think it's item number 7, to avoid duplication. So having an amphitheater does just that. Having, having maybe a skateboarding spot would do that. Having an ice rink. I mean, I know that there's one in South Lyon, but some people are not going to want to drive out there to go to that. But, and I just had some questions. Maybe this would be more along the lines of maybe a John question or regarding our potential security. I mean, would there be bleachers for the fields? And if so, what security measures would we have? The picnic tables started to walk away in Atchison Park at one point. Like, what would some security measures be? Would we have maybe a security camera at the pavilion or at the restroom on the outside to deal with vandalism, or, to maybe offset some of those things from happening? And I don't know if that's, like I said, if it's a John question or a
Oh, I think that's a
Bob
great
question.
That's a great ad also, and that's why we're here, because you guys got good ideas, and I myself didn't think of that.
Well, we did talk about the bleachers, and I was surprised, because back when my son played baseball and football, bleachers were a big thing. But when we talked to the junior league and the football people, They didn't recommend the bleachers.
Oh, no, they
No.
don't.
Bring chairs and.
No,
They like
they-
their chairs
Yep,
and the
no,
whole
so I
elaborate-
was surprised at that. Now, see, I would have had a different vision for that.
Right.
But they said, no, they're not really into the bleachers, so I was surprised. I just thought they might want them, but that's, people bring their own stuff and how they want to sit, and so.
And I
But
guess-
that was one of our suggestions, and that got kind of,
I guess this might be something that would be more for our fire chief, but is the distance from the parking lot to the baseball field, like, is that a safe distance, or would the EMS, would the trucks have to go,
It could be a
Off-roading?
utility road.
would there, okay.
Yeah, between,
There's a, let me go up here.
I don't have my real glasses on, so,
There's an access road right in this area.
okay.
That's, the township will have rights to as the owner of the property. Oops, sorry. So there's an access road here that the gas or oil company uses to
Oh,
get back here.
okay.
But it is in a dedicated easement that the township would be able to use. So fire, police would be able to enter from there.
Okay. And then what about maintenance vehicles for the field maintenance? Would they be using that, or would they be driving? Because I can't imagine anybody would want to walk from the parking lot to the ball field if they have to carry maintenance equipment.
so, if I can speak to that?
Oh, yeah.
In South Lyon, what we would do, we had a shed near the back that we would keep chalk, mound dirt, that kind of stuff. But the person who took care of that had a really nice trailer on his vehicle that pulled right up to it and backed off the tractor with the chain link fence that he would drag around the
Right.
field to smooth it out, and it was very accessible.
Okay.
So we didn't do a whole lot, but it was still there, if that helps, you know.
Well, I just went, would that vehicle be using that service road, or would they be going over your multi-use field?
I was thinking between the
Couldn't they get
football
between those
fields,
fields though?
you could have
Oh,
one
yeah,
of
really.
those gravel almost
one?
coming up to the ball field.
Well, so we'll absolutely have that as the plan develops,
Yeah.
because all of the grant funding is predicated on making sure that these fields are accessible for
Yeah.
ADA, and so, that will certainly be something that gets shown as we move forward in the development process.
As I recall, way back, when I was on the park committee, so many years ago, we had quite a few problems with parents driving across the grass in Atchison Park just to get closer to the practice location instead of parking and actually walking. And I don't know if that would, I don't want that to happen here.
okay. Anyone else like to?
No, I like what's been presented, and Patty, I wanted to echo the senior exercise equipment too, because
Yeah.
the whole, I guess, age range of
I like that,
facilities
too.
should be
well, it's a
presented.
township park.
Right.
So we should probably try to fit
Yeah.
every age group, something
Absolutely.
attractive for them
A trail
to
around
visit.
the perimeter
No,
with
not just
distances marked off, so you know how far you've walked or
Yeah, a
run.
walking trail.
something.
With an
I mean,
exercise point at each quarter mile or something like
Mhm.
that.
parks are very attractive to all ages.
Yeah.
And we need to, again, as much as we want to provide for the sports, like Lisa said, not everyone, I mean, I'm older, and I want to go visit our park, spend all this time, I want to do something there, whatever that is. Even if it's a picnic area or amphitheater or a movie in the park or listen to Lisa's kids play band. I mean, you just don't want it to be for just sports. You want it to incorporate other activities for all ages and all interests, if you can.
Now, are we still looking at the boardwalk and the conservation easement? Is that still, I think that was a phase 4 initially. Is that still?
Yeah, but it is, yes.
Still, okay.
The tricky part with that is to design a pathway through the woods that means ADA, your tree survey is really expensive. It would probably be pretty difficult to meet the grading requirements. I mean, I would almost recommend that you leave that a natural trail, and that might be one instance where the township either just mows a section and just leave it natural, so it still can be used as a nature trail. But once you start putting something in there, you have to meet all of the requirements. So that is kind of pushed to a later phase anyway, but that's just a thought moving forward. That might be another approach to that nature area, just mow a section through there. Wander in and.
Would you, just to convey as another idea, if you are going to eventually have even if it's just a natural trail, could we reach out to the middle schools and the high schools cross-country teams and see if that would be a practice location for them? They currently run at Island Lake State Recreation Area for the middle schools. And maybe, I don't know if it would work in this location, but maybe it might be nice to have, the Centennial and the Millennium combined teams being able to practice there, or being able to have a meet there instead of having to go to Island Lake. And I don't know what the high schools would want, but.
That course at Island Lake is somewhat legiondary, actually.
Oh, yeah.
It's an incredible course.
My daughter liked it, my son
Yeah.
didn't, so. But even if it would just be a change of pace for them to be able to, if they had something there occasionally, it might be nice to have something here.
Troy Powell, 29962 Sheffield. Just a couple ideas. With the advent of the amphitheater, I think the size of the restrooms, because the volume of people are becoming, will need to be increased. I don't know if, it's been discussed, but I think, we have to give that some consideration. Also, maybe speak on Patty's thoughts, bocce ball, maybe shuffleboard or some things like that to, we've got Abbey Park right down the street, Cambrian down the street, so maybe some more senior type activities. Just a couple of thoughts that I had.
Good thoughts.
And a dog, fenced-in dog.
Dog, yeah. I mean, we have one in the area.
Do we?
Yeah, Lion Oaks, which is,
Oh, that's right. You're right.
So, I mean, I think a lot of the considerations that are taking place have been, the meetings are, I know Chris spent a lot of time researching all of the, facilities in the area. So the idea that we don't have, or that there's enough multi-use fields, there aren't. I mean, especially knowing Junior League and some of those people, we certainly need the additional soccer fields, football fields, baseball type fields, and we really have no place to play adult softball. I think it's a great opportunity to create some adult softball leagues that will bring more use into our, into the parks. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy.
I agree about the bathrooms. However, if you have an event there, like a concert in the park, either once a week or for 6 weeks or whatever it is, we can also add porta potties, and to enhance that if it's not needed all the time, but that's something that we could address for sure. Because we do that up here too.
If we expand the bathrooms, that means a bigger vault.
That's right.
Anyone else like to come up and give us some input?
Leslie, it looks like a great conceptual plan to start with. Just wanted to add what Troy said.
Yeah, can't hear you.
Tim Davids, 25801 Belladonna. Just to expand on what Troy said, bathrooms next to an amphitheater, and as someone who's been to quite a few outdoor amphitheaters, road noise should also be a consideration. Away from Milford, 11 won't always be that quiet, graded, dirt road that people live on right now. It'll be paved at one point, so that amphitheater should be as far away from the road as possible. Headlights are also a relevant point. The design of the amphitheater matters as well, if you're going to recess it and build it into the ground, or if you're just going to have elevated outdoor seating. I would also consider that at some point you might actually have events at that amphitheater that you might have a food truck at. So or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on the size of the amphitheater and the viability of bringing in food like that for some sort of event. So it might be a consideration as to how you would pose them or stage them. And Leslie, can you walk me through, you said phase 2 or 3, you would have some sort of crossing?
Well, the phases haven't really been identified yet. I think my gathering from the Friends of the 11 Mile Park is that we're gonna design the entire thing, cost estimate it, and then break it down into what is reasonably affordable.
In terms of a crossing though, for instance, for
From 11
people
Mile?
on 11, what do you, in
Well,
terms of
it's
not
not
only a
s-
timeline, but what would it look like? I mean, what would be proposed for pedestrian crossing? I assume that's your concern?
Well, it's not simple to design it because there's utility poles and guy wires in the way. So, but it will be critical to have the pathway all the way to the park, but timing of that, we don't know yet.
Pathway meaning to cross from the other side
Yes,
of
to
Milford.
Milford, exactly. Because the township is funding the gaps along the pathway on 11 Mile Road. We've completed that design. We're going to start talking to property owners in about a week for easement acquisition, and then the next step then, of course, will be to get people all the way to the park, so we have to figure out the crossing of Milford Road, but it's just not
It'd be
simple.
nice to see it in phase 1 with public safety being a concern, which has clearly been stated.
I think the phase 1 is probably gonna be limited to the parking and the play structures because of timing. It seems like we're really far away from the end of 2019, but when you're designing any construction and you have permitting, that goes by fast. So, I know I have to meet that deadline for a parking lot and play structure.
Just want people to get there soon.
No, I do too.
Okay.
So what is our next step with this then? Do we take it to public hearings to ask for
Blue
more?
screen.
Oh, sorry, input, go ahead, sorry about that.
No, you're good.
I was just curious what our next step was now that we saw this. Leslie, do we take it to public hearing? Does it need to go to other commissions? What has to happen?
I think it's really at the direction of this board.
Okay.
If it goes back to the Friends of 11 Mile Park and then continues on from there, or if you wanted us to take it to the other boards, it's really up to you. That's why we're starting here.
Should we do like one evening open house and try and get the planning commission there and the Friends of 11 Mile, just do it all at once to
Yeah.
kind of keep things
Probably the ideal.
moving along?
Right. Because then the decisions will have to be made, and
Right.
I'm not sure if those decisions should be made at the 11 Mile, Friends of the 11 Mile Park Committee level. So I would need that direction as well.
I think a part of this is, the parking lot and play structure. We've spent a lot of time, and Leslie spent a lot of time in estimating that and doing preliminary designs and that sort of thing. And it sounds like from every comment that I've heard tonight, that isn't the concern. That's something that realistically we could get started on and could get Leslie actually designing. We've got the funds, or a good chunk of the funds, that could be expended on that parking lot and in an attempt to get that playground built. And then over the next coming months, the Parks Board is going to be updating their master plan. And as part of that, we should be incorporating some of those public feedback and public input events that can inform the other pieces. I've heard a ton of good ideas, bocce ball and shuffleboard and all those things. The previous Parks and Rec plan has an inventory that some of those items aren't on. So we want all of that additional feedback moving forward, and I think that should be accomplished in the next couple months. But personally, I'd like to see the elements that we know are a go, or we're 95% of the way sure that they're a go. I'd like to get that moving to make sure that we have enough time that we can utilize the funding that we know we have.
I agree, that's essential. We can't miss losing that grant. And so I would agree with that maybe we should, make a motion for that if we can, just to get that part moving, because we can't miss that. I mean, we're not gonna lose $200,000, that'd be crazy. And then maybe I like Chris's idea of actually holding maybe a larger
Open house.
like a in-house, master plan review of our future park.
Well, and I think having a more, having a larger scale event like that, I could probably convince some of the people who maybe can't come to the monthly meetings, to be able to attend at least that, like to provide some feedback, and maybe they can't dedicate monthly meetings, but they still have some input about what they'd like in their community. So I think that would be a good idea.
Got something to say, Chris? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Chris Shacker, 59878 Mulberry Circle, South Line. The two things I want to bring up that I've been vocal about being on the Parks Board and also here with everything is that if this project is going to be coming in off of Milford Road, if it should come in off Milford Road, I know there's talk about it, and we're just talking. So first of all, I want to compliment the plan. I think it's nice. I think you guys are doing your best to, once again, accommodate most of the residents, so thank you. But with that being said, my two areas of concern are with the south end of Lyon Township, sorry. I live over at Aden Pontiac Trail. I know that Milford Road for me is a main artery on the weekend, so I'm getting yelled at about doing things for the wife. So with that being said, understand what I'm about to paint a picture of. There's a big game that lets out, and they're starting the next session. You got people coming out. It's going to clog up 11 Mile. Perhaps maybe if there is going to be an entrance off of Milford, we have a passing lane of some sort or something like that. Now, I don't know. I know you guys don't control the roads, but maybe there's something that could be accommodated for that relief to the southern end people. The other thing I would also like to ask is that I use Volunteer Park. I know it's not in Lyon Township, or it's not part of ours, but I use Volunteer Park as this example. Will that be enough parking for what accommodates the needs on this map? If you have flag football going on, lacrosse game going on, baseball game going on, that's a lot of cars. And I know Volunteer Park has malls sometimes, and you can't find parking anywhere over there. I mean, they're parking damn near on the, outfield on some of those ball diamonds. So I would also question the parking on this. The other thing I would like to also bring up too is that, I like the idea that you brought up, Chris, Lisa, John, all you guys, just trying to accommodate everybody as a whole. This is going to be the gem of, one of the few gems that we've had in a while for our township. And what I would ask is that I know that there's a pressing need to move fast on some things, but I would also ask that we move slow in the sense of making sure we're accommodating, doing what we can for as many folks as we can, such as seniors, such as handicapped children or adults, all of them in general. This is going to be a vocal point for everybody. I know everybody's going to want to try to get everything they can in. We can't, but at the same time, if we can do what we can to accommodate what we can, that'd be great. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Good ideas.
Very good. Boy, I'm liking the park better all the time. It's really looking good. Anyone else like to come up?
You know what, Leslie, I think that's what Chris brought up, I know we talked about the parking lot spots, but actually, that might be a good idea if we shifted the amphitheater a little more and made sure we left extra spots
For future.
in case for future. That might be part of something we might really want to consider. Moving the whole parking lot maybe over and or something, maybe something
road
like
to it.
that. I think that's an excellent idea because although I've not been to Volunteer Park, parking is always an issue, and I know we brought that up in our meeting, but
It seems like it would accommodate, but the amphitheaters, you don't know how much, and if that's going on at the same time as games, then it's
might be a lot.
are off, I think.
Well, here
Which would be a great problem to have.
That might be a great, that's a great idea.
I think
I'd say this to the board, if you guys get a chance, I know if you want to come up, you will, but if you can go, they play flag football there and baseball this time of year right now. If you get a chance, just drive in there on Saturday, you'll see once again, it's just one example of what I mean by the parking, because it's a big wide open park, every spot's filled. Now, if you're accommodating that many games on this field, which you would be, it may not be enough for the parking that you have right there.
to give you an idea, we've got like 180, 185 spots designated in that lot. And general parking standards are 30 for each football field and 25 for a baseball field. So even if all four of those are being utilized at one point in time, you're still under 120. You've got a surplus of 70 spots that could be accommodated through, or that could be utilized for the pavilion and the amphitheater and that sort of thing. So in terms of size, that's going to accommodate your worst case scenario.
Is
I like, who brought up the food trucks?
Troy.
Troy did.
No,
That's
Tim Daves.
Tim or Troy? Troy did. Tim did. That's actually a very good thought, and we should think about something like that. I see. I did not think of that, but that's actually, maybe we make sure we have wider parking spots. Like if they could back, you designate something that's really popular. So it's a good. I mean, that's a really good idea.
Food trucks should traditionally be staged in parking lots. It creates liability. It's not safe.
So you pull those on the grass, or
Between the event and theoretically the parking lot, so A, the food truck doesn't have to travel that far across any grass.
yeah, that's really
B, the food truck shouldn't be in a parking lot because you're bringing.
okay. Got it. Okay, very knowledgeable. That's really a great idea. So
Leslie,
we
is
might
there-
want to move that amphitheater over and provide a grassy area. Like, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, that is,
Even by the games.
Yeah.
There was a fundraising group that wanted to
Tournament.
sponsor and have the food trucks pull up right in here even for games.
yeah, well, that's a good idea, Tim. Thanks.
Is there a possibility of having, and I can't tell if there's room or, to have a second entrance into the parking lot? And the reason I mention that, off of 11 Mile. I mean, if I don't have kids in Panthers, but I know how crazy it is for them, especially parents who have 3 or 4 kids involved in just Panthers. So you're dropping a kid here, you're dropping a kid at another field, and you're dropping a kid at, a third location. So there's this constant movement of cars coming in, dropping kids off, and trying to get out. And I know when we had this new entrance put in here, that alleviated so many traffic concerns for those parents who are utilizing this park. If it's possible, I think it might be pretty beneficial for that kind of like high intense use of kids getting dropped off. But
I think it could be planned, but this is the Blackwood drain. And
Right.
it converges with the Novi Lion drain here. Crossing these they're very expensive.
Right.
So, can you add one? Yes. What I would probably do is figure out where you want the second one later, and if it's a problem, you could always build it later.
I think that's a great idea.
This, just every
We're
time
out
you
to
do a
Milford.
crossing here, it's a
Well, we already
wetland
looked in
permit.
that. That was my
This is
suggestion.
going to
I
be a
go, why are you
floodplain
looking?
permit, a county drain
Right.
permit. All of this
Exactly.
has to
Well,
be done
We did.
so
It's
we
just
can
right
get
now.
get people in here for this play structure.
Right.
So what we could do is discuss a possible placeholder, maybe even here in this area, or even maybe in the future at some point, try to plan something for Milford Road in this area, but not construct it. It
Right.
could always be constructed later. You could construct that in 20 years. Doesn't have to be done with the initial park development either.
Right.
When this is done, all the cars will be autonomous and they'll work it out.
Right.
Themselves.
We can just fly it there.
Yeah. Fly.
Any other comments?
No,
Did you
looks
want to
good.
proceed
Anyone else?
with a big public meeting first, or do you want to go back to the Friends of 11 Mile Park?
I like
What's the
the
direction?
joint. I like
Yeah.
what Chris had to say.
Just get it all at once.
One evening public meeting?
It makes a lot of
And
sense.
do we have to make a motion for Leslie to go forward with the, we already gave her,
You already authorized.
yeah,
the
you already
proposal.
authorized that, so,
I no direction on how to move
What's
forward.
next step?
I think get that parking lot and the play structure going. So,
And
I
hold a
think it's
public
important for people to see the progress of some excitement so that it's still it's showing that we're working toward this as a.
Yes. Okay, so I'll work with the township to schedule a public hearing, maybe even later this month. Okay? Maybe April or May.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, very good. That was
Thanks,
good.
Leslie.
Okay, moving on to the consideration of the introduction of an, what's that?
this restroom.
Okay.
It's okay.
Introduction of an ordinance for Township of Lyon to amend zoning ordinance 190-18, revisions, text amendment. Brian?
Tim's not over.
This item and item number F item letter F.
Yeah.
Are somewhat related in that they are cleanup items. They are removing things like references to the town center overlay district, which is no longer in use in the zoning ordinance, but that town center overlay is also recognized in the regulatory ordinance as well. So it's cleanup of things like that. We're removing references to the B1 zoning district, which is no longer a part of the zoning ordinance. Same thing with R2.5. We're adding the mixed use district to the list of districts in Article 21, which is the establishment of zoning districts. And then we're correcting some footnotes to the schedule of regulations. These are things like cross-references that are no longer valid. Nothing of substance when it comes down to regulating development moving forward. We can go into more detail than that if you'd like, but really they are.
I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
These are
actually.
straightforward.
Basically, has everyone had a chance just to read these cleanup items? Okay. Patty's not here, so do we want to wait for her? Do we need to?
I think we need to go ahead. Yeah, these are just cleanups.
Okay, these are cleanup
9:02,
items. So.
John.
I'll make a motion to, this is first reading?
Yes.
Approve the first reading of zoning ordinance number 190-18, AP 1803.
I'll support.
All right, we have a motion and a support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and I think the F is also the same. It's a housekeeping text amendment.
Correct.
And that one, again, kind of goes along with the first one. Have you guys read that too?
Yep.
Understand what they're doing? Brian, you want to?
I don't think so.
It's pretty
They're
simple.
all follow under that same umbrella.
We're actually removing the reference to the R2-5 district.
Yep.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the first reading of ordinance number 03-18 as presented.
I'll support.
All right, we have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to the next consideration, the introduction to ordinance for the Township of Lyon to amend the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 1, General Provisions, General Penalty, Continuing Violations, and I think this has something to do with the super drunk law.
Yes, was prepared by the township's prosecutor. And in 2010, Michigan's new super drunk law went into effect, which meant if you had a .17 or more grams of alcohol, you could face higher penalties. One of the enhanced penalties was you could face 180 days in jail, and as a result of the increased jail time, all the super drunk cases had to go through the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office. In 2012, there was an amendment to the statute which now allows the township to prosecute those high blood alcohol contact offenders, which then would mean that you wouldn't have to seek a warrant from Oakland County, and increased fines could be collected under the local ordinances. So this amendment would permit the township to do that.
Makes sense. Everyone understand that one?
Yes.
Motion's in order.
I'll make a motion to amend the Code of Ordinance, Chapter 1, General Provisions, Section 1-11, General
This is an introduction too.
Penalty, yes.
Yeah.
Continuing Violations, Ordinance number 04-18, as presented.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on to the consideration of the ordinance for the Township of Lyon Child Care Centers and Group Daycare Homes. Text amendment.
This is another cleanup type activity. The Zoning Board of Appeals has heard two cases recently, and by recently I mean within the last few years, relating to the amount of required yard space or outdoor play area per child at a daycare facility. And the point of clarification is that we're looking to, the intent of this ordinance is to say we want 150 square feet of outdoor play area per child outside at any given time. The ordinance doesn't read that way right now. The way it reads right now is for maximum occupancy of children. So we're getting pretty outlandish outdoor play area requirements, and ending up forcing those to ZBA is not what we want to do. We'd rather clarify the ordinance, and that's what this intends to do.
I appreciate that you cleaned this up, because that came before the ZBA at the
remember
daycare that
that.
was by Saddle Creek, and it seemed a bit ridiculous, and I was concerned about the, like, really what was the intent, and I think it's a really excellent way of
Every
phrasing
daycare
it.
had to go to the ZBA.
Okay, well, sounds good. Make a motion, get this one.
Make a motion to amend child care centers and group daycare homes, text amendments AP 18-07, zoning ordinance 191-18 as presented.
I support.
All right, motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Moving on, consideration and introduction of ordinance, Township of Lyon, to amend mini warehouses. This is a text amendment also.
We had a recent case where the ordinance was interpreted differently by the applicant and the township in terms of what it meant to actually have a pitched roof. So this item is clearing that up. It is defining the minimum pitch for a roof for a storage facility building. The Planning Commission discussed slopes between 3 on 12 and 4 on 12, settled on 4 on 12. So that's the standard that they are proposing for adoption.
Okay, I do know we had some situations going with that one, so this is a good cleanup. Anyone want to make that motion, or any questions for Brian?
I'll make the motion for first reading to amend the mini warehouses text amendment AP 18-08 zoning ordinance number 192-18.
I'll support that.
Motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to the Fire Station 2 concrete rehab and parking lot addition. Recommendation for contract award.
So we prepared the engineering plans to not only rehab the existing concrete at the fire station, which is in disrepair, but also to expand the parking lot so that your clerk has another polling location. And we bid the project with the base bid of using all concrete for the expanded area and, of course, the existing concrete, and then an alternate bid with asphalt for the expanded parking lot area. And that was really to see, to compare the two prices and make a determination if, which the board would prefer. The asphalt cross-section is 4 inches of asphalt on 8 inches of aggregate, which is really equivalent to a road that you would see in a subdivision. So it's definitely a good thick cross-section. You're going to have a nice parking lot. But there is a concern that fire trucks might be parking in that area. And so that's part of the reason we bid it both ways, so the board could decide which route you'd like to go. The low bidder in both cases, which was very convenient for this discussion, is GM and Sons. We did check their references and found them satisfactory, and they've actually followed up with me twice since the bid opening, so they're excited about the project. So the base bid for all concrete was $335,012.50, and the alternate bid with the expanded area of asphalt was $273,044.50. It's approximately $62,000 difference between concrete and asphalt. We also broke down the prices so that like a repair cost versus new parking area cost, just so you have an idea for the two differences, and we outline them in the letter as well as the attachments in your packet. So, for example, if the concrete repair work was done with the concrete parking lot, the repair is $134,795, and the new parking area was $200,217.50. I just broke them down based on their unit prices. And then also I provided the same, they're almost even if the expanded area was asphalt, they're about $136,000. So really what we're looking for is to determine what your preference is and I'm recommending the contract be awarded to GM and Sons.
Okay. The problem we have here at this situation is in our budgeting for this year, we missed this guy. Okay? So I was looking back in the line budget to try to keep our budget going so that we don't have to mend the heck out of it. There was two sections in there. One was a capital improvement project where we were doing gravel roads, and we had put $180,000 in that category. Well, we did a major road graveling last year, and I think we did a pretty good job, and I think we're good for this year. So that $180,000 that we put in for road graveling could be reallocated to this project. And then the one other place that we have a large amount of cash that we could maybe reallocate is the traffic light at 8 Mile and Griswold. And the reason I'm saying that is because we were just guaranteed that that was going to get paid for. So these were the two areas that I thought we could find the funding for the concrete at Fire Station 2. Now, my biggest thing is I'm a little concerned about the asphalt, only because we can tell the fire trucks to stay off it all we want to, but they end up on it now and then. And I think the concrete, it's their parking lot. It's in the back of their, and it's going to be hard to keep them off it. So my thoughts is it would be nice to concrete that area.
I think do it right.
That's what I'm saying.
The first time.
Well, they might want to use that area. That's a big parking spot. They might want to have, a fire fair or hold an outdoor pancake breakfast or an activity, or we might want to. I think it benefits to have it paved myself. I would spend the money.
I think if we do it kind of half and half,
Wouldn't look right either.
Well, it's going to fall apart anyway, so
Right.
then we're back a couple years later trying to repair it.
Well, that was my idea, to go inexpensive, to get it done as inexpensively as possible. But again, we'll be voting there probably for a very, very long time, only because we don't own that many buildings. We are going to try to expand more into the schools, but as we continue to grow, we still need the parking, all kinds of places. And I just felt like if we're going to make the expense, and that was our fault during budgeting, we had put the concrete in for Station 1 already under other functions, miscellaneous expense, and then didn't populate it for some reason, because we probably felt it was already taken care of, so I missed it.
Just one thing to note too, there is not lighting proposed in the expanded area. With discussing this with Michelle, she would bring in temporary lighting as necessary, so it does back up to the residential neighborhood, and the planning commission actually approved the site plan without the lighting.
They were worried, I think, and Patty can speak to it better, is that it's people's backyards too.
Well, we're figuring that you'll be using it in the
Twice a year.
August, in October, and the polls close at 8 o'clock.
November would be the one I'd
Yeah,
bring the
November,
light
I'm
in.
sorry.
Yeah.
And we figured if they're having any activities, they would probably maybe do them during the day or in the summer when it's light till 9 o'clock. So being that it surrounds residential, we just thought it'd be better if it's necessary, we could bring in temporary lighting.
Well, then again, we could also prep it for lighting.
Yep.
Right?
Good.
Couldn't we prep it? Can we get to the building to prep it for lighting if we ever needed to light it? That would be the only thing. This section's in the rear. It'd be hard to
Right.
get
Just
to.
put some conduit in.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do that. You could leave the conduit in to the islands.
Yeah.
That's just a thought. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
that's a good idea.
inexpensive, and
I
we can
agree.
always,
I mean, I can
Just
ask
in
the
case.
contractor
You
for
never
a
know.
price.
we
Yeah.
can add it if it's needed.
I just have to talk to an electrician to find out size of conduit.
See,
I'll ask him for a price.
my initial thought was asphalt just because of the pricing and the lack of use, but I guess I'll ask the chief, are you going to be parking fire trucks on it? If you are, then we should probably do concrete.
Oh, we could.
No, then that means probably, so, I guess I'm just thinking further down the road and how the use may expand. I guess that would be my part, not to worry about
Okay, then I'll make a motion to award to GM and Sons the Fire Station 2 concrete rehab parking lot addition for $335,012.50 paid for out of the general fund.
Should that include any additional for conduit?
Yeah. I have
Which
no
is going to be
idea.
very minimal.
I don't think it costs that much.
I would recommend that you leave the contract award price based on what it is. We'll get a price from the contractor, present it to John and Bob. If it's acceptable, we'll issue a change order.
Because that's going to be
can't imagine it's gonna be-
PVC that they're going to
can't be
run.
that
Won't be that much.
Yeah.
This PVC pipe, you know.
Yeah, I can support that.
Okay, so we have a motion to award the bid for the concrete construction. And we have a second? All those in favor? Oh,
I second it.
yep, I said we do.
Oh, sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Great, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on to the-
Lisa?
Did you say in consideration? In consideration of entering into closed session pursuant to MCL 15.268E to discuss the pending litigation of Emsley v. Charter Township of Lyon, Court of Appeals number 337123, where an open meeting would have a detrimental effect on the legal or settlement position of the township. Motion to enter into closed session?
Okay.
A second?
Okay, would you please call this by roll?
Lisa Blades?
Yes.
John Dolan?
Yes.
Christopher Enlow?
Yes.
Commissioner Carcone?
Yes.
Michelle Cash?
Yes.
John Hicks?
Yes.
Okay, let's take a brief recess here and while he's breaking down the cameras.